Freemasonry is Babylonian devil worship. And before I'm done, I'm going to prove to you that Freemasonry, Scottish Rite and York Rite, and Catholicism and Jewish Zionism are all Babylonian devil worship. And I think you'll be amazed. They use the same symbols. They have the same teachings. It all comes from Babylon, the Tower of Babel. And those teachings some of them were taken to Egypt. So they get some of their teachings from Egypt. They have a fixation on Babylon and Egypt in the typologies, in the figures, in the actual teaching. Now, don't forget this verse, Joshua 24:14. You got to get this verse. Now, therefore, fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in truth, and put away the little g gods, which aren't gods at all, but they're devils. Put them away, which your fathers served on the other side of the flood, and also in Egypt, and serve the Lord. So the premise is, these evil spirits do not go away. They are eternal spirits, and the same ones that caused the flood of Noah are the same ones that caused the 10 plagues of Egypt, are the same ones that plagued the Jewish nation for thousands of years, and they're still here today. But spirits can learn just like you. And so how smart would you be if you were 10,000 years old? You would be probably smarter than you were when you were just 20 years old. How many of you old people in here are smarter than you were in your 20s? Well, sure. Well, what if you were 6,000 years old? So my point is, I want you to get, they're not something to learn about that happened 6,000 years ago. The Bible is alive today, and it does not back away from the truth. It's just nobody knows it. The same evil spirits are alive and working today. And where would they be working? In religions. So, I'm going to prove it to you. Now, you may not like it. Now, I want to say this. Deanne Lowe said the other day on Facebook something about Masonry. And, boy, there are some ignorant people out there. And I don't remember this lady's name, but this lady said, Masons are not bad people. They don't worship the devil. My grandpa was a Mason. And I thought, that's about the ignorantest thing you've ever said, maybe, possibly. I don't know her. Maybe she said something stupider. But just because your grandpa, that doesn't mean that thing he was a part of is not evil. Now, before we get any further, the whole world is deceived by the devil. That's plain in the Bible. He deceives the whole world. So the vast majority of Masons throughout the years have been deceived. And the vast majority of Catholics are deceived. And I think you possibly could be again and be a Catholic. It would be real hard, and God would probably lead you out of it. But we're not saying that individuals are evil. We're saying they're deceived. Now, if they're deceived, just go with me for a minute. If they're deceived or not, then it's your responsibility to try to shine the light for them. But, sometimes we love them too much to tell them the truth. I don't love anybody that much. And so I want to start this out with the person, the tip of the spear of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. His name was Albert Pike. Albert Pike is known as the sovereign grand worshipful master. Now I'm going to go slow, and I want you to watch these terminologies. This is a religion. Albert Pike wrote the book, The Bible for Masonry. It's called Morals and Dogmas of Freemasonry. I have a copy of it in my office. Years ago, they would kill you if you had one and you weren't a Mason. Years ago, Catholics would kill you if you were a Catholic and you had a Bible. So there's a lot of similarities. In Barrsville, there is a Masonic temple. It doesn't look much like a temple. It's a metal building on the way to Dewey. But the altar is arranged to where they go to the east. That's a Middle Eastern Babylonian thing. In the Bible, if you want to go find God, you go westward. You go from the east, which represents the world, westward to find God. In Islam, they always ask each Muslim person, have you been to the east? That's because they need to, in their lifetime, make a pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia and walk around the black Kaaba square. So it's opposite of Christianity. But in Barrsville, there is the head of the temple. He's the high priest of Masonry. I met him. I went in there one day and tried to get them to give me a Morals and Dogma book, and they wouldn't do it. So I had to buy it off Amazon. But his title is Grand Worshipful Master. It's also called the Grand Dragon. But Albert Pike was given the honor of being the sovereign Grand Master, Worshipful Master, okay? So here's a couple of pictures of this individual. And then I'm going to tell you about him. Here he is. He was a lawyer and a general in the Confederate Army. I think I got another picture of him. Here is his statue in Washington, D.C. When they were tearing down all the other statues, nobody touched Albert Pike's. I thought that was strange. Now, I got this article. I hope we can play it. And these are the top 25 quotes of this individual who represents Freemasonry. He's the poopaw. He's the shack bully of Freemasonry. Now, if you can just scroll down, Tim, we'll just try to read these. Okay? So can somebody read these? It's the same thing. Just depending on which one you can read better.
To you, sovereign, grand inspectors general, 33-degree Masons, we say this, that you may repeat it to the brethren in the 32nd, 31st, and 30th degrees. The Masonic religion should be, by all of us initiates of the high degrees, maintained in the purity of the Luciferian doctrine.
Okay, did you understand that? He was a lawyer, and he writes in lawyers' terms that common people get lost in. But these degrees of these 33 degrees of Masonry are in different sections. The first three's in a section, and then I think it's 4 through 7 or something. But it's okay for the top people, the 33rd degree, which is an honorary degree, you can go ahead and share with the 32nd, 31st, and 30th that the God they worship is Lucifer. But you don't want to share with the first 3 degrees because you'll scare them away. And in each degree that you accomplish, you're told, you've been given this light, but there is more light, and it's always learning and never coming to the full knowledge of the truth. But this ought to be enough to scare you to death. The God they worship is Lucifer. Now we have a guy that used to come to church here occasionally that's getting off into this Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, Zionism writings. If he's not, he's messing with the devils that wrote it. This man says, Masonry is a religion, but it's not a religion. It's the religion. And that Lucifer, the serpent, has been lied upon. He's not a bad thing. He's the bearer of light. And in a video just the other day, this little gentleman that used to be here said, the serpent in the garden was Jesus Christ. That's Kabbalah. Let's go to the next quote. Some of these will scare you to death. And there's no doubt. Now look what he says here. This guy in the late 1800s predicted World War I to the nations that would be involved and why they were involved, to World War II, to the nations that would, he said, we've got this all planned. World War II to the nations involved and why they were involved. And then he said the Third World War would be fought in the Middle East with the Muslim nations and the West. We haven't seen it yet, but it sure looks like it's going. Somebody read this.
The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascism and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism is strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel to Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm.
Do you understand this guy wrote this in the 1860, but he already knew that World War II would be fought to take down the Nazis. Where does he get this knowledge? And to establish a Zionist state. Was that what World War II was fought over? Yes, it sure was. Notice he said that Christendom, which would be held, be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. You're living in a theater. You just don't know it. But in Matoaka, you're going to know it. Now, you don't have to believe any of this, but you're going to hear it. It's going to be tough next 3 or 4 times here. Now, look at the next one. We can't probably look at all of them, but these things, they just get worse and worse and worse. Go to the next one. Keep going, Tim. Now, look at this. Look at what this quote says. It says, it's a strange and mysterious name to give the spirit of darkness, Lucifer, the son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light and with its splendor intolerates? I can't read it for the glare. This guy worships Lucifer. And what he says is, we've all been duped into thinking Lucifer's the bad guy when Lucifer's the good guy. It's the ultimate deception. Let's try one more.
Masonry is a search after light.
Yeah.
That search leads us directly back, as you see, to the Kabbalah.
Now, the Kabbalah is Jewish mysticism. There's a few books of it, mainly written by one rabbi who was contemporary with Jesus Christ. He hated Jesus Christ. He wrote it soon after the destruction of Israel, 70 A.D. This Jewish mysticism is Babylonian devil worship. It's the same thing that Israel as a nation always fell back into all throughout the Old Testament. But the Christian people today can't believe they've fallen back into it again. Yes, they have. They for sure have. So you can look these up. If you don't know where they're at, I'll send them to you. But they just get worse and worse and worse. Let me give you a little background of this guy. Albert Pike. He served as a general in the Civil War. He also, I thought this was interesting. I've studied his life several times, and I didn't know this till this last time I started studying it. But he was given the Confederate Indian Commissioner and military commander of the Indian Territory. That's Oklahoma. And during the Civil War, he would recruit the Native Americans in Oklahoma to fight for the Confederate in the Civil War. Richard may know all about that, but I didn't know that that was one of the things he done. Also, there's been many books written about his tactics. His tactics were he would take wagon loads of whiskey and prostitutes into the Oklahoma Territory and then get the Indians, let's say, liquored up and all hopped up, and they would sign papers, and then he would take them into battle. Just thought that was pretty cool history. So Abraham Lincoln wanted to hang Albert Pike for war crimes on humanity. But Albert Pike fled to Canada to escape the hanging until another Freemason, William Booth, assassinated Lincoln. And when William Booth assassinated Lincoln, then Albert Pike came back into the South. He was also the founder of the KKK. He was also a staunch Democrat. I don't know if that matters. He believed and taught that the entire Bible was allegoric. Allegoric. It was all a made-up story for you to understand the meaning. But none of it ever happened. That's what our little friends from here are teaching. And Albert Pike said especially the story of Jesus. Because you see, there's the same similar story that's been propagated all around the world of a guru with 12 men. And a lot of that comes from the Babylonian worship people. And they try to say it was ancient and to discredit the story of Jesus. So he taught that all religions were Babylonian sun worship at their core. Some people worship the sun by calling him Allah. Some people worship the sun by calling him Jesus. Some people worship the sun by calling her Mary. But what he taught was it's all Babylonian sun worship. Another well-known Mason was a guy named Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley was given the title as the most evil man on the earth. His mother named him the Beast and the Devil. That's a name from your mother. His father was a preacher. Look at the pictures of this guy. This guy is a creepy guy. Now, this guy, he went off to college, but he was real lazy. And all he wanted to do was lay around and drink and have sex. And his parents died and left him this vast fortune. And so he never worked another day of his life. I chose this picture because I want you to see this. This was his symbol that he carried with him. He put it on the books he wrote. Do you see what that is? That's the Star of David. That's the Star of David, just used with a little bit of different angles. But the Star of David is a Babylonian devil-worshipping symbol. David didn't have any stars. The Star of David, supposedly on the flag of Israel, is a Babylonian devil-worshipping symbol. It's used in Masonry. It's used in Catholicism. and it's used in Zionism. Now you have to remember, we're not talking about Judaism. We're not talking about true worship of God from the Old Testament. We're talking about Zionism, which has a motive to take over the world. They believe in the serpent also. They have a feast every year to the serpent. Masonry has one goal. That's to control the whole world and to take over the whole world. Catholicism has one goal. That's to take over the whole world and to rule the whole world and present it to Jesus Christ. Zionism has one goal. That's to take over the whole world. And when I get done, I think you might agree with me. Now, we won't be done tonight. We're just taking a little bite of Masonry. Next picture. He was infatuated with Egypt and the teachings of Egypt and the symbols of Egypt. Well, that's why this is part of this study, because we're in Egypt, right? His wife was supposed to marry some other guy, and he swept her away and didn't kidnap her. She wanted to go, and he took her to Egypt, and they lived in Egypt for a while. And he studied all the esoteric stuff of Egypt, which is Babylonian devil worship. He was infatuated with Egypt and the symbols. After a few years, then they moved to Britain. Next picture. Here is a picture, and they have colored. If you'll notice, he's wearing that spotted tunic. And I taught on that before, but that spotted tunic is a robe of royalty. And he wanted his Star of David to be on this picture. Next picture. Here's a real famous picture of him. Now, on this book, he has a pentagram, which is a devil symbol used throughout history. And on his little goofy hat is that floating capstone on the Egyptian pyramid with the eye of Horus, the sun god, in it. He's infatuated with Egypt symbolism, which is Babylonian symbolism. Next picture. He also is a high-ranking Freemason. The most evil man in the world was a Freemason. Next symbol. And this, you're going to think this is a joke. This ain't no joke. There are people that have investigated this, and they have a mountain of proof. He is said to be thought to be the father of Barbara Bush. Now, there are some people that think Barbara Bush was probably born Bobby Bush, if you know what I'm saying. But she does have an uncanny resemblance to this man. Now, this isn't just something like a coincidence. There is a backstory to it, but that's for you to study if you care about it. But her parents spent time with this gentleman in a perfect time for her birth. Let's just say that, okay? I'm not saying he was. I'm not saying he wasn't. But she don't look nothing like her dad. She looks exactly like Aleister Crowley. Next picture. Here it is. They've done a computer side by side. Features are uncanny. I think I have one more. Here it is. Look at that picture with the top hat on. Now, that I just threw that in there because I wanted you to know that that's out there. And that doesn't really mean anything to me who kids he had, but he was a bisexual. And he is said to have fathered all kinds of kids because he's trying to spread his whatever evilness or whatever. He also summons up demons. One time we was doing a study here a few years ago. Some of y'all was here, and I taught about Aleister Crowley when he brought up that demon, and it looks exactly like a gray alien, and I tied it to Mork from Ork, and Mork from Ork had a alien mentor or something, and he was named the exact same thing that this demon told Aleister Crowley was his name. And I should have looked that up for you, but I think it was like Yam or something like that. So, Masons come from the trade of stonemasons. That's where they get their names. And the stonemasons that they come from, they claim, are the stone masons, the actual rock layers, brick layers that built Solomon's temple. Most people don't think about the Freemasons in Bartlesville having a tie to Judaism. They are worshiping the same thing as Zionists. They worship the building of the Jewish temple of Solomon. So the story is about a man named Hiram Abiff. Hiram Abiff is one of the main characters in the ceremonies of Judaism. He was a Jewish man. He was a Jewish contractor who was the lead contractor to build Solomon's temple. How many of you know that Solomon wasn't out there carving on stones and driving nails? But Hiram Abiff was over the whole thing. So Hiram Abiff had stonemasons in 3 different categories. The first category were the newbies, and they were called the entered apprentice. They were apprentice to stonemasons. What that means is, Richard Harding told a story about being a plumber apprentice this morning. That means in Sunday school, and that means you get all the sorry jobs. And as a plumber apprentice, you can only imagine what kind of crappy job you would get. Well, the first level was enter apprentice. That's the first level of Freemasonry. The first level is known as the enter apprentice. The second level that Hiram Abiff had was fellow craftsman. And the third was master mason. That's the first 3 levels of masonry. Okay? Now, this is the story of when you come in with your pant leg rolled up and your shirt untucked, and you are initiated into masonry through that because you are acting out what supposedly happened to Hiram Abiff. So Hiram Abiff's story was that he was assaulted and assassinated by 3 masons. One was an inner apprentice, one was a fellow mason, and one was a master mason. So you reenact that every time a new mason is put into the lodge. And Hiram Abiff was, according to the story, raised from the dead through the power of the lion's claw. Well, remember last time I told you about Pat Robinson, the big preacher man of 700 Club. Here's his picture that they put on Time magazine when he was running for president. Now, how many hundreds of pictures did you think they took of this man before this picture was selected to go on Time magazine? And is he having a grand mal seizure, or is he blatantly demonstrating the lion's claw symbol of masonry? The reason why they put that on there was a message to all the other people that, hey, this is a fellow mason, okay? So this lion's claw was given the credited to raising Hiram Abiff from the dead. Now, you might have missed that. Let me slow down and give you something. The Freemasons of America and Europe, called the Scottish Rite, they worship the structure of Solomon's temple. David's son, the first temple of Judaism, Solomon's temple. How much tied to Judaism can you get? The actual Masons that built it, they claim that they are carrying on this craft. So they're all tied together, and you'll be amazed at how they are tied together. I wrote these down for you. Please pay attention. I didn't put them up on here, or didn't have time, but here are some of the degrees of Freemasonry. I just gave you the first three. The fourth degree is named Secret Master. Everything is secret. You make a vow that you will kill yourself if you disclose any of the secrets, because Hiram Abiff wouldn't give them the secrets to the two pillars on the front of Solomon's temple. Now, I think I know the secrets, but Hiram Abiff would not tell the Masons the secret. And the reason, it's biblical, they didn't want anybody to know the secrets. How many of you know that's how something stays secret? You don't want anybody else to know. So, there's a lot of secretness. When I was at Barnesville First, it used to drive me nuts. They would have secret deacon meetings. Now, deacons are to be servants. And deacons are to serve the church and to serve the pastor in any way possible to help the ministry of the church. They are not to be lofty and elevated and some kind of pope. They don't hire and fire the preacher. They don't tell the preacher what to do. They're to be servants. Well, in Barnesville, they pretty much ran the place. I couldn't get over it. Every time they put the same deacons on the search committee for the preachers. And every time, you can ask Peggy, they come back and they'd say, "Oh, we have been on our face before God. This is the man that God has for us. This is him. We have fasted. We have even slowed down on our beer drinking. And God has showed us." 6 months later, they're like, "We need to get rid of this sucker." I'd be like, "What? You guys are the ones that told us God told you, you know, whatever." It's a farce. Anyway, I said, why would a church have a secret meeting? Now, if you're talking about someone in the church's personal business, of course you keep it secret. But I'm talking about church business. There shouldn't be no secret meetings. There ain't no secret meetings here. Pretty much do everything from the pulpit. But this organization is steeped in secrets. So number 4 degree, secret master. The 16th degree, check this out. That degree is called the Prince of Jerusalem. Well, what's a Mason? What's a guy in Barnesville? Another thing, there's one word you can't say in the lodge. There's only one word that you cannot say in a Masonic lodge. Does anybody know what it is? Jesus. And they do not worship Jesus. Now, individuals might, but it's a lot like AA. You just got to have a higher power. But the founder and the progenitor of Masons, just you saw the quote, they don't find out it's Lucifer that we worship until the 30th, 31, 32, 33 degrees in Masonry. So, who is the Prince of Jerusalem? That's a title of Jesus Christ. Everybody understand that? That's not a title of Donald Trump. He's got the title of King of Jerusalem. But he's not the King of Jerusalem. The Pope has the title King of Jerusalem. But he's not. The 18th degree is a knight, like, crowned knight of the Rosicrucian. In the Latin, it's croix, C-R-O-I-X, and it's Latin for cross. And what it means is the beauty of the rose with the pain of the cross. Well, we got 2 degrees already that talk about Jesus Christ, yet you can't say his name. But what they say is, it ain't Jesus Christ, it's Lucifer. 19th degree, get this, Grand Pontiff. Pontiff is a title taken by the Pope. I'm telling you, they're all the same thing. The 23rd degree is, get this, Chief of the Temple. It's a Jewish temple that they're talking about. The 23rd degree. 24th degree is the Prince of the Temple. They seem to be infatuated with this Zionism, Judaism. The 25th degree, the Knight of the Brazen Serpent. And remember, they teach that the serpent's a good thing. So, the 27th degree is the commander of the temple. And the 30th degree is the Knight of the Kadosh. And Kadosh is a Hebrew word for holy. Well, what's some hillbilly redneck in Barnesville doing being the Knight of Kadosh? It's a Hebrew word. He don't know Hebrew. The 32nd degree is the master of the royal secret. The 33rd degree is the top of the Scottish Rite, and it's also the year that Jesus died. And 33 is a number used in occultism all over the world. So they worship the building of the Jewish Temple of Solomon. This temple, according to the Bible, had 2 pillars on the front porch. Let's go to 1 Kings 7, verse 15. This is a Bible study. So 1 Kings 7:15. For he cast 2 pillars of brass, talking about Hiram Abiff, of 18 cubits high apiece. Okay. A Jewish cubit is 18 inches. So what would 18 cubits be in feet? 27 feet, right? Everybody okay with my math? I'm pretty good with them goes intos. Because every cubic is 1.5 feet. So you'd have 18 feet with 18 cubics plus 9 feet left over from the halves. Everybody with me? And 18 and 9 is 27. So these pillars are 27 feet tall, and I don't think most people in here realize what 27 feet tall are. But watch this. And a line of 12 cubits did compass either about. So they're 12 cubits around. So how many feet would that be around? That'd be 18. So they're 18 feet around, 27 feet. These are big pillars. Look at verse 22. And he set up the pillars in the porch of the temple, and he set up the right pillar, and he called the name thereof Yakin. Now we say Jackin, but they don't say the J with a J like we do. They say it with an H like our Hispanic friends. Remember that one guy? He said, we're coming back down here in the summer to vacation. And he said, when are you coming? He said, I'm not sure. Sometime around Hoon or Hulai. But anyway, so it said Yakin. And he set up the left pillar and called the name thereof Boaz. Did nobody get my joke? Hoon and Hulai? Okay, all right. You just chose not to laugh. So one pillar's called Yakin. The other pillar's called Boaz. So these pillars were named. Now, when the temple was destroyed, Jeremiah 52:17 talks about these pillars. Jeremiah 52:17 says, also the pillars of brass that were in the house of the Lord, and the bases and the brazen sea that was in the house of the Lord, the Chaldeans break and carried all the brass of them to Babylon. Well, what do you know? So these pillars were broken and destroyed. Here's some pictures of masonry and these pillars. They are worshipped because they held the secrets. And we're going to try to disclose those secrets to you today. And so here are these pillars. One has a B for Boaz, one has a J for Jachin. They also symbolize as above, so below. And that's symbolized in the light of the earth and the dark in the earth. Also in masonry, you'll see checkered board floors, white and black. You'll see the yin and the yang, white and black. It symbolizes as above, so below. Here's another picture of these pillars. In these pictures, these are art for masons. In this picture, you could pick it apart. You would be amazed at what all Judaism is in this picture. Up in the right-hand corner, you see the Masonic apron. Those are to commemorate the aprons that God made for Adam and Eve to cover their nakedness. All Masons have aprons that they wear. You see the two pillars. You see the pentagram in the middle. You see the all-seeing eye of Horus above the pentagram. You see on the left the sun, and on the right the moon. You see Jacob's ladder going up to heaven. You see Noah's ark. Is this a religion? Yeah, Albert Pike said it's the religion. At the bottom you see the coffin where Hiram Abiff is raised from the dead unto life. All kinds of symbolism in this picture, okay? So the main thing I want you to get is they worship these two pillars. Next picture. Here's a picture, and transposed over it is what the Kabbalists, the Zionist Jews, say is the tree of life. There's 10 points of this tree of life. It leads into the teaching of the chakra, that the energy comes from your tailbone up your spine to your pineal gland. That's all devil worship, okay? Our little friends are off into that. But they use this Kabbalah tree of life because everything in Masonry is the mystic writings of Kabbalah, okay? You're going to learn more about that as we go. Next picture. Here you see the checkered floor. It's sort of in a pyramid, the all-seeing eye of Egypt, and the two pillars. Here you go again. Next picture. Here it is, portrayed in front of Solomon's temple. I think I have one more. Here it is, a little better shot. So those are the pillars that was in front of Solomon's temple. This is the brazen altar of the sea of water where you look into, where all the water was coming out the bottom in a little spigot. Is that the last one, Tim?
Yeah, that's the last one of those.
Okay. So, is that all my pictures?
You got some pictures up here in a bit.
Okay, yeah, show me a picture of Hiram Abiff. I don't know who that is. Show me another picture. This is Hiram Abiff. Now, go back to that picture. This is Hiram Abiff with a goat. A goat of Baphomet. He's a goat. Next picture. This is the compass and the square, the signs of masons used because they were thought to be used to build the temple of Solomon. And Hiram Abiff was the lead contractor. Is that it? There's one. Now, how do they know he was bald-headed? But anyway, so it's just strange stories, isn't it? So I want to leave you with what is said to be the mystery of the two pillars, and you will know something that nobody else knows. So when Solomon had the temple built, they weren't just knuckle draggers sitting in the dirt going, ugh, ugh. These guys were brilliant guys. And so what the teaching is that they put them two pillars out there, but they weren't just decoration. So the pillars were filled with sand. Now remember, they're 18 feet around and they're 27 feet high, and they're completely filled with sand. And they were on a cable system and a hydraulic system and a weighted system that if they needed to, if someone came to capture the temple, they would be looking to capture the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of the Covenant was the most coveted thing in the temple. So the story goes that they created those pillars with brass feet on the bottom, or what you would call bases for the pillars to set on. And they're giant things. And they were constructed in such a way that if they were being overtaken or in siege of the temple, they could go and they could bust those feet. And the sand would run out of the pillars. As the sand ran out of the pillars, it would work through a balancing cable system and lower the floor of the Holy of Holies where the Ark of the Covenant sat. It's a very small little thing, about as wide as this opening here. But the floor would lower down into a tunnel cave. And Jeremiah and his men that followed him took that Ark of the Covenant through the tunnel system underneath Jerusalem and hid it in a cave. Now, once the sand all ran out and the floor lowered like an elevator, then they were able to whisk it away. That's the secret of the pillars. They weren't just there for looks. They were a part of an intricate machine that would help them to whisk away and hide the Ark of the Covenant. That's why, if you look back through history, for example, when Jesus said it is finished on the cross and the veil was torn from the top to the bottom, one of the most important things about that was that common people like us could look into the Holy of Holies, which no one but the high priest was allowed to go in there. But what the high priest of Jesus' day was so afraid that the people would notice there wasn't an Ark of the Covenant in there. And so the secret would be out that they didn't know where the Ark of the Covenant was and hadn't known where it was for several hundred years. So now you know the mystery of the pillars. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you. Help us to learn all that we can learn about this so that we can share it with our friends and families who might be Masons or might think there's no big deal about being a Mason. And help us to learn the truth and to have the boldness to share it to the people that you lead us in contact with. We thank you for another great day here at Matoaka Baptist Church. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you, folks.